Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of NB Bassin. I am your host, Donald Patterson, here again for another week, another Wednesday evening edition. Looks like this is, I had said I was moving to Wednesdays. My original plan was to move to Wednesday mornings, but I'd say at this point it's safe to say that I'm going to stick with Wednesday evenings because that definitely seems to be the best fit. The learning curve that it is doing this show for you every week. Before I get started, as always, I can't thank the people who listen most of all. I can't thank you all enough, but of course I have to thank Fish Bomb Outfitters, Carrot Sticks, Southern Yankee Baits, War Dog Lures, Northern Michigan Outfitters, and of course the two most important people to me, my wife and my son. Without them, I'm totally lost. So, thanks to all of them, and someone that I probably don't thank often enough, and I probably should, lifelong friend, angling partner, tournament partner. There's days we get on each other's nerves, and there's days that we keep each other going. So, Jason Bellier, since I started this show, I probably haven't thanked you near enough. So let me make up for that by saying thank you to you as well. We're in the middle of the spawn. Obviously different bodies of water, slightly different impacts. But for all intents and purposes here in New Brunswick, we're in the middle of the spawn. And yes, you can go out and target smallmouth bass, as myself, my son, and some friends of ours did on the weekend. And there was all kinds to be had. We were fishing beds. Out of the 60 to 70 fish I personally put in the boat, I think I took pictures of 4 of them, because the main purpose is hook them, have some fun, get them back in the water so they can protect their beds, because it was all small, but small males. The females had done their thing in the lake we were on and moved off. So, oh, excuse me. I had to get a drink before I coughed in your ear. The fishing is still there. Right now is a very critical time for those of us who choose to target bass to be responsible. So, I don't have a lot of bass fishing to discuss in this week's episode. I do have something bass fishing related I'm going to mention here shortly. But I can't stress it enough. This is a very critical time of year, and I'm sure we're not the only area. New Brunswick is not the only spot in, the midst of the spawn season. So obviously this doesn't apply just to those of us here in New Brunswick. It applies to anybody who is allowed to target bass during their spawn. And even if you're not targeting them, you hook one accidentally, get it back in the water as quickly as possible. That's the only thing you really have to remember this time of year. If you have something other than, a yearling fish, if you've caught something bigger than your thumb, then that fish is probably taking part in the spawning process. As a male protecting a bed, because there's some small males, especially in these cold northern waters. The fish don't grow fast. So, like I said, the main thing to remember, hook them, get them back in the water. Snap pictures of a couple. We were able to sight fish a lot of these fish. Can we necessarily see every potential predator in the area? No, but when you're fishing beds that are only in a couple feet in crystal clear water, you've got a pretty good idea what's in the vicinity. And, but just get them off the hook, get them back in the water. So, before I sound like I'm just mumbling and rambling about one subject, I'm going to move on from that. I really, really wish I could go around to each and every person involved in our sport and have a one-on-one conversation with them, something you folks have heard me talk about numerous times. And I'm going to talk about it again because it's reared its ugly head once again. Ethics. I had a friend who has just recently been shopping for his first boat. You know, I've been helping him along the way. A little bit of advice, little bit of, you know, doing a little legwork for him. If there was a boat closer to me than it was to him, I'd go look at it for him, save him the drive. Throughout this process, I am happy to say that, now I haven't heard back from them yet, but I did hear earlier this evening that himself and another gentleman were on their way out to test his boat. So he did get the boat he wanted. But along the way, I saw a couple, I'll call them disturbing trends. A couple disturbing things happened. One with a boat that he looked at, one with a boat that I looked at on his behalf. And it's just downright dirty, as far as I'm concerned. Now, one of the situations, the boat I looked at, it wasn't an angler who owned it. It was a, well, there's no other way around it. And I apologize to anybody in the industry if you think I'm putting you all in, painting you all with one brush, because I'm not. But it was a used car salesman. And he was living up to the stereotype of your crooked used car salesman. I went and looked at the boat. It was a 29-year-old boat, 29-year-old motor. For all intents and purposes, the hull was in decent shape. No trolling motor. Didn't know if any of the bilge pumps, live well pumps, anything of that nature worked. Fish finder, he wouldn't show it to me. It looked like a bracket for about a 4-inch humminbird. You know, he tried to tell me it was something worth $400 or $500, blah, 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 whatever. That's secondary to the main point of my conversation. It's a used boat. I learned a lesson the hard way. If I want to buy a used boat, I want to feel what that boat handles like in the water. I want to put that boat in the water and try it. So I gave it a good going over, and one of the things I did was spin the prop by hand. While doing so, I see the center of the prop, or center of the hub, center of the shaft. Seems to have, just going by the naked eye, seems to have a little wobble in it. You know, little warning bell in the back of my mind goes off saying that looks like a bent prop shaft. So, I only live a couple minutes away from where this boat was sitting. I turned around to the gentleman, and I'll use that term loosely. And I said, if I go get my pickup, can we hook onto this and take it down to the lake that's only a few minutes away? I said, and take it for a little spin. He refused to let me put that boat in the water without me putting the full asking price in cash in his pocket. And needless to say, alarm bells sounded with me, because the first thing that I thought is, yeah, I put cash in your pocket. Number one, it wasn't me. I wasn't shopping for myself, so I didn't have the cash. And number two, you put cash in his pocket, you go for a drive, the lower unit flies out of it, and then he says, oh, you hit a rock, that's your fault, I'm taking $2,000 of your deposit. You're out $2,000, he's sitting on a boat, goes and gets the lower unit fixed, and turns around and jacks the price up even more. Yes, I understand allowing somebody to take a boat for a test drive involves a certain amount of risk. And I have no problem if I'm testing a boat for the owner or the person selling it to go with me. I even have very little problem with at least starting the drive out with them driving. Because it's more about what I can hear, what I can feel. I don't necessarily, yes, it's nice to feel the steering. But I can watch someone driving a boat 9 times out of 10 and get a feeling for the feedback that they're putting through the steering wheel. If I'm sitting even in the passenger seat and there's a bad vibration in that motor, I'm going to feel it. If there's a hitch in the motor during acceleration, I'm going to hear it. But to just put on a set of muffs and fire that motor up in the dooryard and not run it under load, yes, it's better than nothing. But if it's an open water time of year, it's not going to do it. I learned the lesson the hard way. I bought a boat that I didn't have the opportunity to run. Didn't get the opportunity to even hear the motor run. Took a guy at his word. I'm still in the process of rebuilding that motor. I got a grand total of 20 minutes use out of it before it let go. So that was episode number 1. Episode number 2 was with the boat that my friend went and looked at himself. He went and looked at it. Talked to the owner. They agreed on a price. They shook hands. Said, yeah, you can pick it up on such and such a day. The owner wanted to take it to a local dealership, have it serviced. You know, all the stuff that a responsible boat owner and a conscientious boat seller would do. You know, no, I want to make sure it's got a clean bill of health before I put it in your possession. You know, the boat was immaculate, had been well maintained, perfectly, well cared for. So just sounded like the guy was being responsible. Well, the day came for my friend to pick the boat up, and he hears from the seller saying, the bank's a little slow getting back to me on the approval for the money on my old boat, or on my new boat. I don't want to be stuck without a boat. I can't sell you this until I hear from them. Okay. I understand the gentleman's prerogative. He doesn't want to be left boatless at basically still the start of the season. But that being said, if you don't want to be left boatless, don't strike a deal with a man and don't shake his hand. Next, after that, and I don't know all the details of the story, and I'm not going to get into all of it, but let's just say there was somebody else thought something didn't seem quite right. Sent the man an email from a different email address through an ad he had advertising the boat that hadn't been taken down. Long story short, he was angling for a higher price. He negotiated a price, shook hands on it, and was still trying to find a way to get a better deal. So, like I said, long story short, if you've negotiated a price and you shake a person's hand, honor it. You know, this is the second episode of this type of situation that I've, been involved in conversations of this year. The other one was on something a whole lot smaller scale than a boat, but it was electronics. It was fish finders. You know, man supposedly had sold it. They agreed on a price, and then the guy wouldn't deliver it. And then when he was cornered about, oh, well, I sold it to so-and-so who happened to be a family member, blah, blah, blah. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The fishing community is small. We are a very small group. And in a province like here in New Brunswick, we're even a little smaller again. And that's why I don't want to say any names. I'm not going to call anybody out. Because at the end of the day, I don't have 100% of the details. I have the information I've been given, and I believe it to be true. But at the same time, I'm not going to call anybody out and name names. Now, if somebody had done this to me specifically, oh yeah, I'll name names. But in these cases, I'm not going to, because I was a third-party involvement, so to speak. But it just drives me crazy. I'm not a rich man. You know, I work hard for what I have. I work hard for everything I get to do. You know, and I can't turn around if one of my friends or somebody I know is in need. I can't turn around and pull out a pocket full of cash and say, here, how can I help you? What do you need? What do you need? What I can do is look my friends in the eye and say, I've got your back. And they know when those words come out of my mouth, they know it's real.